Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also become a bitter pill or a spoonful of sugar or what have you by visiting thebittertruth.info. You can also listen to the shows there for free and read the articles, but we appreciate support of the show. You can do that through the website itself or go to patreon.com/thebittertruth. Appreciate support of the show if you go to YouTube and subscribe and like, which you can do for free as well, or do that on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever you listen to these things on. We're pretty much on everything. And as I said, support of the show is always appreciated. We don't take any sponsorships or anything like that, although I've had some very bizarre offers. We don't do that. And a little quick side note, for the first time in my life, because I've only ever listened to Joe Rogan on YouTube, I was at my friend's house and we were listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, I guess, on a podcast channel. And man, he does ads up the ass. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I didn't think he did ads because I never heard it on YouTube. I guess they cut it out because it's in competition with YouTube. But, and plus I was stoned. So this was like an out of body experience because he was like talking about, cat food and whatever the hell else. It was like dental floss. I mean, organic dental floss. It was just bizarre. Like 4 or 5 commercials in a row before they actually got to the show, which I guess now kind of explains to me his manner. He's a great interviewer and I like his show quite a lot. But I see that, depending on who he's talking to, there's some pushback and then there's not some pushback. And I'm going, oh, okay, well, maybe he's got some sponsors to worry about. I don't know. But anyway, I'm not in that position. And as Jimmy Dore likes to say, I don't have an MSNBC contract. So, and if I did, I'd have to talk like this in hushed tones. Anyway, the election is over, as we all know, and it is over. It is over now. So all the right-wing conspiracy bullshit that is about the same as Russiagate, or Blue Anon, as I like to call it, kind of stupid to keep insisting that Trump was cheated, like it fucking matters. As Ice Cube said, Trump lost. Now what? Now what's Biden going to do? Well, my little chewy blue friends didn't really think too much about political theory. In that political theory is a transaction. Voting is a transaction. If I go to vote for somebody, it's because you are promising something. In 2016, if you recall, Trump actually promised a bunch of shit, which is pretty much, I think, why he won the election, not because of Vladimir Putin or whatever. In fact, Wesleyan, Wesleyan, that right-wing think tank, Wesleyan University, the Wesleyan Media Project had a study come out in late 2017 that Trump spoke to policy 4-1 over Hillary Clinton. So while he was crude and ham-fisted and a fucking toddler, he did talk about wars and bringing jobs back and all the healthcare, even though he was full of shit on that one too. But he talked about all these things 4-1 over Hillary Clinton. All she could do was talk about grabbing by the pussy and character, and not talk about how entire regions, pretty much stuff that Obama took twice, that Trump won, places like Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, the story. Those places were decimated by 2 terms of Bush and then 2 terms of Obama. So they thought, what the hell we got to lose? Unfortunately, the lesser 2 evils just keeps becoming more and more shitty to where we got Joe Biden and the wokey wokes or chewy blues or whatever the fuck you want to call them, actually just willingly gave over their lives. This election was the largest voter outturn since William McKinley ran against William Jennings Bryan in 1900. So in 120 years, we haven't had this many people turn out. And it wasn't so much as a vote for Trump, as I'm sure you probably know by this point. It was a vote against Trump. Or I'm sorry, a vote against, it wasn't a vote for Obama. Gosh, I can't even talk today. It wasn't a vote for Biden as much as it was a vote against Trump. No one was voting for Biden. I mean, Biden was filling 75 people in a gym, like Hillary Clinton was filling 75 people in a gym. Bernie Sanders was getting 30,000 people. Trump was getting 30,000 people. Even this last cycle, failing that he was. I mean, he had some rallies that kind of went south and nobody showed up or whatever. But he had a lot more that did show up. Meanwhile, Biden, it was just like, I don't want a third party. I can't have Trump again. And what was Trump really guilty of, except for super mean tweets? I'm going to get into this crap in a second. When you look at his stellar fucking cabinet picks, what's Joe Biden going to do for us? Not a goddamn thing. In fact, The Intercept just released a leaked Zoom meeting where Biden's talking to civil rights leaders, and he's basically telling them to go fuck themselves. I've done this, this, and this. All lies. He hasn't done jack shit, but he said he did it. And either it's dementia or lying, which, if you recall, the first 2 presidential runs he took a stab at. He had a brief run in 2008 where he flamed out after the Iowa caucus, but in 1988 and 2000, I believe it was where he got busted for lying about his transcripts. He got busted for plagiarizing Bobby Kennedy speeches. He got, it was embarrassing, and he ended up flaming out, dropping out. And even then, this time around, he had the nerve to say at one of the debates, "I beat the socialists." Bullshit. Obama came off the bench and got everybody to corral their delegates around you. And then Bernie, feckless chicken shit that he is, just caved when he could have still run another couple of months. And if he was ballsy enough to take his ball and go home, which he should have in 2016, that's a whole nother topic. Could have, would have, whatever. Here we are. So the big argument I kept getting all season, and this is a season, and for people that are, unfortunately like me or my brothers or, some of my friends, it's kind of like Super Bowl, but it comes every 4 years. Then the midterms and the midterms, but, the presidential, the general is sort of the big kahuna. But if you were watching this season, the big argument was, well, when Biden wins, we'll push him to the left. I'm like, no. That's not what we used to do when I was a kid. You waited for the guy to come out and say the right shit, i.e. Obama, even though he's a fucking liar too. And then you vote for that guy because strategically, status quo doesn't win elections. Hope and change wins elections. Trump won on hope and change. Going to end the war, is going to bring jobs home, all that shit. That was Trump. Hillary Clinton was Medicare for all will never come to pass. And America's always been great. I don't know what he's talking about, making it great again. We've always been great. Well, that doesn't work in the failed states where the policies of your last administration, where you were Secretary of State, failed. See, that doesn't work because those people are hurting. 50% of Americans before the pandemic were making under $30,000 a year. $20,000 is poverty level. And some of these are families of 4 or 5. So, and we're cutting food stamps. Obama cut food stamps. Trump cut food stamps. I'm sure that Biden is going to cut food stamps. He fundamentally told bankers in the summer that nothing is going to change. So this whole thing of giving your vote for nothing is fucking stupid. And only because you don't like the mean man. Okay, well, let me go into the blue mean man, or as I'm going to call him from here on in, and for the next 6 months or a year before he completely starts drooling into a rubber diaper and Kamala Harris becomes president, because that's exactly what the fuck's going to happen within 6 months to 18 months. You didn't hear it here first, but I'm one of the few people that will fucking say it because it's the goddamn truth. Hang on one second. I'm taking a sip of a big lemon drop that I made now that I'm working from home. That is yummy. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're in your kitchen, I recommend you make one. So now that he's in, I'm like, let's give him a chance. People that tell me let's give him a chance don't know who the fuck Joe Biden is. To me, telling Joe Biden, let's give him a chance, is like having that neighbor that fucked my wife, stole my TV, and crashed my car. But I'm going to still let him babysit my kids for the weekend if I'm still with my wife. It's a analogy. You get what I'm saying? Biden spent 50 years on the wrong side of everything. Name it. Crime bill. He co-wrote that. If you don't know what the crime bill is, and most people don't, and I'm fucking annoyed at how many black people I know that come at me with this shit, who don't know what the crime bill is and say, I don't give a fuck what the past is. It's in the past. Wow. Then you're an idiot, and or you are a self-hating black person because you don't know what Black Lives Matter is really speaking out on. And anybody that is black that did vote for Biden, you're a fucking idiot. The crime bill is why we have a slave-like prison system. 50% of whose inhabitants are nonviolent, non-trafficking drug offenders. Joe Biden did that. So if you ever saw the documentary 13th on Netflix, which is about the 13th Amendment, which began to codify a non-slavery era slave time, which is what we have basically. And then Biden with the crime bill created over 50 death penalty violations. I mean, fucking how many death penalty violations can you have? Murder and rape. That's about it, right? There's over 50. Crack became a Schedule I narcotic where the powdered cocaine, Biden's banker buddies, that's their stock and trade. That's a Schedule III narcotic. And then somebody the other day had the nerve to tell me, well, cocaine, it's a Schedule III because sometimes they use it medically. Well, marijuana is used medically. Why is it a Schedule I narcotic? Because poor black, brown, and white people and middle-class people such as myself still buy marijuana, and they want to come after my ass, right? But the banker buddies and MBNA, one of the largest banks in the world, which is stationed in Delaware, which funds all of Joe Biden's, or funded all of Joe Biden's Senate races, and funded this bullshit too. Hunter Biden also had a board seat there, just like he did with Burisma. If you want to look it up, look it up. Don't sit there and tell me it's been debunked. It wasn't debunked. So you sound like a Trump voter when you say that. It was debunked. No, he did grab the chick by the pussy. He admitted it. He's got 30 sexual assault things coming out at him, whereas Biden's got 10 or 11. So I guess that makes him a better person, unless it's your daughter or your wife, and then you have a different story to tell, I'm sure. But all of his banker buddies came out and supported him, right? So for him to say, yeah, I beat the socialists, well, bullshit, you didn't. So let's give him a chance. DOMA, crime bill. He voted to deregulate the communications situation in this country, which is why now, 25 years later, we have only 5 companies that own everything, which is why, strangely enough, Fox News and MSNBC sound the exact same thing on more war and no health care for you. That's, here's your bowl of porridge. Go fuck yourself. Excuse me. He's voted for every war that we've been in the last 20 years. He's voted for 25 years. He's not a good guy. He voted to make bankruptcy tougher for people that are at their lowest and need a little help. You can't it's harder to file bankruptcy. You can't bankrupt on your student loans, which is a total racket. You can't bankrupt on the IRS. I mean, people don't want to bankrupt on the IRS. People don't want a 7-year mark on their record. They want to go on with their lives. But if they're in a point where it's between feeding their kids and paying their tax bill, well, you can cut back defense a little bit. It's a whole other topic. But it's ignorant, because if any of these things were done by Donald Trump, if Donald Trump voted for DOMA, and by the way, side note, when Bill Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act, if you don't know what DOMA is, it was the anti-gay marriage bill pushed through by Biden and his buddies. And Bill Clinton signed that bill in 1994. And then he went on the 700 Club to brag about it. Okay. So when people tell me that the Democratic Party have more in line with their values than the Republicans, I'm like, well, then you're a fucking toddler. Because except for gays, guns, and abortion, those guys are the same fucking party. And if you're going to sit there and tell me that for the last 30 years, the Democrats have been nothing but Republicans and the Republicans went completely insane, again, you're an idiot. So I say these things, and then people get angry and they'll say, well, that's in the past. Why is it when it's your guy, it's in the past, but when it's their guy, you're just fit to be tied? Why is it that war crimes are something that we should charge Donald Trump with, or George W. Bush with, which we should, but when it's Obama or Clinton, Hillary Clinton, for example, Libya, they get a pass. If Trump did Libya, you motherfuckers would be howling at the moon. That's a fact. And you know why I know that? Because not only am I online, but I go out. And I'm in Austin now. It's a smaller place than LA. And I got a couple of bars where I've got regulars. I've got friends, acquaintances that I see on a once or twice a week basis. Hey, it's like, cheers. Hey, you show up. Hey, this bar, that bar. And they say the same stupid shit. Well, that's in the past. You're being too hard on Biden. No, I'm not. Because anybody that's guilty of war crimes should be in jail, much less not in polite society allowed to run for higher office, period. End of story. We hung Saddam Hussein for a lot less. We put a bayonet in Muammar Gaddafi's ass for incredibly less. But he was a dictator. Well, you know what? Number one, women had rights in Libya. There was no burqa rule. Everyone had free education, free college. They had free medical. They enjoyed an incredibly high standard of living. Housing was affordable. Wages were high. And yeah, so, okay, he's going to kill the occasional journalist or whatever the fuck he did, which justifies his going in to steal people's oil. It's interesting that the Saudis, who are Nazis by comparison, I mean full-fledged. I mean, the Saudis, chop off 37 heads on a Tuesday. They throw gay people off of a roof. If a woman gets caught driving at nighttime, she can be beheaded. This kind of shit goes on in Saudi Arabia all the time. And we ignore that. And by the way, this country supports 75% of the world's dictators. So let's define dictator before you go on and justify Libya to me, or say, well, Obama said he was sorry. It's funny. I'm sure, Jeffrey Dahmer or name a serial killer, said they were sorry too, right? Obama's a mass fucking murdering maniac. And so is George W. Bush. Okay. But let's move on. So if the past works for that kind of shit, then you're an idiot. It works for spilt milk. It doesn't work for war crimes. It doesn't work for criminal financial malfeasance. Isn't it interesting that Joe Biden's made $15 million over the last 4 years being out of office? Obama's getting $500,000 a click to go speak at banks. Banks, by the way, who he did not indict one single banker during the last banking crash, economic crash that we had. And he bailed them out and let 5.1 million families lose their homes. Because why? Because that was baked into the recovery. But rather than do, God damn it, the easiest GED thing, make them come get your vote. You just went to them on bended knee like they were your spirit animal, and you went and voted for them. And people got so pissed at me and mine. I mean, I say me and mine, I mean people that are kind of in my boat, quote, lefties or progressives or whatever the fuck you want to call it. We have a progressive caucus in this country, and it's anything but progressive. So I don't like to use these names, but you get what I'm saying. Because you tell them, hey, they got to get your vote. What policies? I voted for Howie Hawkins, flat out. I was going to write in Gloria Molina. I'm sorry, Gloria Molina. I'm so from LA right now. Gloria La Riva. And because she wasn't on the ballot in Texas, and I was going to write her in. And I thought, well, I really want something to count. I think the Greens might have a better shot. And I wanted to help them get their 5%. With these, and the number would probably change if they did get their 5% of the vote, because, the council and presidential debates or whatever the fuck they do is all privately owned anyway. It's not a real government agency of any kind. So, but I voted for Howie Hawkins, is my point. And people get mad at me, say I'm throwing away my vote. I said, that guy represents at least 50% of what I want. He wants to end the regime change wars. And by the way, for those of you that tell me that wars don't matter, it's because your fucking kid is not in the Army or the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force or anything. Your kid is not in Afghanistan. Your kid is not in Libya. Your kid is not in Iraq, which, by the way, all of these excursions, these adventures, we're still getting our asses kicked Vietnam style for 20 years. Pentagon Papers have revealed that last year, and nobody said shit about it. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Went right, Pentagon Paper. I'm sorry, the Afghanistan Papers, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. It wasn't the same thud that the Pentagon Papers had on the heads of everybody. Everyone's just going, yeah, well, we always kind of I guess we thought it was bullshit, but okay. But okay, so when you tell me that the wars don't matter, foreign policy doesn't matter, you're a fucking tool, because your kid is not in the service. For those of you who tell me that Medicare for all, well, the Democrats need a more strategic approach to that because, they could probably lose and then it would be bad. What you're telling me is that you have your health care covered and you don't give a fuck about your fellow man. 14 million people just lost their coverage because they don't have a job anymore. And what's the answer? Oh, go spend $700 a month on ACA. And for anyone telling me how great the ACA is, number one, you haven't been on the exchange and actually looked, because I have. And number two, you're lying about your income to get it. I know good 15, 20 people whose names I won't mention, and they are both on both sides of the aisle. They're the chewy blues or the crunchy reds. I know people that lie about their income paying $80, $4, as in $4 a month for their ACA, their Obamacare, and they'll rave about it. And I'll say, well, how did you get it that cheap? Oh, it's just wonderful. No, because you fucking lied about your income. You know how I know? My day job is this shit. This is my wheelhouse. I live here, deal with employees all the time. This is what I deal with. So when people try to tell me that ACA is so wonderful, I'm like, that's amazing, because you have an $8,000 deductible in case you get sick. So if you get sick, I don't mean like you got to go in for a cold or get your blood work done. I'm talking about if you're sick, you're looking at an $8,000 deductible, $7,000 deductible, right? So let's say you get cancer. Let's say it lasts 20 months. Well, it's $8,000 a month per calendar year. So let's just say you get cancer in August. Well, come January 1, bango. You got to spend another $8,000 before it kicks in. Let's say it goes into 2022. Well, bango. That's another $8,000 you got to spend before ACA will kick in. You could be in the hole $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 before the whole thing is said and done, because not only are you paying your deductible, but there's co-pays when you show up. There's prescription co-pays. Some of them are free, some of them are not. It depends on the plans you get. Most important thing is the refusals after you've been approved. So all of a sudden they come back and say, yeah, we know we approved that, but you know what? That stent that they put in your heart, that was coded wrong. It's actually an experimental stent. So we're not approving the whole $85,000 procedure. So even though you spent 30 grand in deductibles, you're still now going to owe another $85,000. Isn't that nice? That's what ACA is. Because unlike the big crowing about Obama making pre-existing conditions a thing, that only applies to the ACA. That does not apply to regular health insurance. And that's why bunches of insurance companies jump off the exchanges despite the subsidies, because they don't like to have to accept 400-pound diabetics who have been, cancer before, who have had cancer before. So those are the pitfalls of the ACA. So simple fix, Medicare for all. It fucking A works. My mom has it. Your mom has it. Is it perfect? No. But I got a brother who's an MD, and you know what he tells me? They never not pay. In fact, I got new coverage about 6 months ago. I had to make some calls to some doctors to see who takes my plan, because it's a health share. It's not traditional insurance. And it works really good, but you have to do a little homework. Well, I must have called 10, 12 offices that said, oh yeah, we don't take people. What are you talking about? And they said, well, we only take Medicare. You're kidding. Nope. Finally, the 9th or 10th lady that answered the phone, I said, well, I've talked to some people before. Why is that? Well, because Medicare pays us. And no matter how much Blue Cross or Aetna or whoever pays, 2 or 3 times a month, we get a rescinding letter, and we just can't afford to be in business with it like that. And so they only take Medicare patients. That is a very interesting thing to note, right? The most popular plan in the country, and you have people gaslighting you and lying to you on the regular, whether it's at CNN or MSNBC or Fox, telling you that we can't afford it, but yet we can afford to go blow up black and brown people for 20 straight fucking years, spend nearly $20 trillion on defense budgets to pay for this shit. And to take oil so that, Standard Oil can make a few extra dollars. That's basically what it comes down to. So, I digress. You just saw 126 congressmen on the Republican or on the Democrat side just put out a big thing that they're going to try to make the 106 Republican congressmen who try to get the election overturned because they, were screaming fix, just like the idiot Democrats were screaming fix 4 years ago. And these 126 Democrats, brave souls that they are, want to censure the 106 Republicans that wanted to overturn the election. Isn't that interesting? They could do that, but you can't get 15 of them with balls enough to hold Nancy Pelosi's feet to the fire and say, if you don't vote, or if you don't move to get a House vote, she doesn't have to do anything else. If you don't move to get a House vote on Medicare for all, we are not going to vote for you for speaker, right? Get on the record. And it's like Jimmy Dore's been crying about this for like a month. It's a genius idea. And I know he's working, because I've seen other interviews where you got AOC on Twitter and idiots like Mark Pocan coming out, who's the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, and saying, oh, this won't work. 15's not enough. And then in the very same sentence go, well, if we only have 2 or 3 votes, what if we get COVID? That we might lose the speakership. Whoa. I thought, well, if 15 votes don't matter, then why would 3 matter? It doesn't even make any kind of sense mathematically. But that's the bravery of the Democratic Party. Spineless, fucking nutless, gutless corporate tools that are just so beholden to goddamn corporations, just like the Republicans. These guys are not your friends. Gays, guns, and abortion. I've said this a million times. It's the only 3 things. It's all identity politics, and like the Democrats are, they're anti-racist. Well, who's not? Who's for racism, right? But what policy is? It's about attitudes. The Democrats are all about being nice to each other. Okay, great. Why don't you put a rainbow flag on the Raytheon building? There you go. That's as useful as all this shit is. So, and if you think this has been going on a little long, it's going to go on a little longer. Let's look at Biden's cabinet picks for a second, because, when you think about the deficiencies of continued fracking, which Obama increased by 88% in this country, fracking and drilling was increased by 88% in this country during the Obama years. 2,000 cities have water worse than Flint, Michigan, which Obama also did not declare a federal emergency, which would have gotten FEMA money had Obama done this. But he didn't, because he's a piece of shit, as Cornel West likes to say, not like that, but he says it more eloquently, that Barack Obama was the black mascot of Wall Street, and Nothing could be further from the truth. But, if you're cool, if you got this far and you're not acting like I punched your teddy bear or, pissed on the dead carcass of your spirit animal, let's take a look at some of his cabinet picks quickly, and we'll start wrapping up. So, former General Lloyd Austin III. He's a Raytheon board guy, by the way. There's a punchline to this. He was one of the main generals in Iraq. He's up for the Secretary of Defense, a Raytheon guy. Now, Mark Esper, who was Trump's Secretary of Defense, acting Secretary of Defense, he was a Raytheon guy. So if Trump picks a Raytheon guy or Biden picks a Raytheon guy, what the fuck's the difference? And the so-called left is freaking out because originally Michelle Flournoy was supposed to be getting that spot, and then Biden passed her over. She was initially going to be nominated, and now she's not. And we're all pissed because you're being mean to a woman. Well, Michelle, always a bridesmaid, Flournoy, was a deputy defense secretary under Clinton and Obama. Okay, in 2007, she co-founded the Center for New American Security, which is basically, wait for it, a left-wing think tank that is not even left-wing. It's just a fucking think tank, not unlike Hillary Clinton's or the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation, right? Just right-wing bullshit, posing as a lefty think tank. She's also the current managing partner at West Exec Advisors, another lobbying group, right? There's that. Anthony Blinken. He's getting nominated for state. Now, he's an ex-Biden Senate aide. He's an ex-deputy NSA guy. Total imperialist, war hawk, asshole. Never met a war he didn't like. Never met a treaty he didn't think was worthy of us wiping our ass with it. Was in on all the illegal wars, 100% support on all the illegal wars. Okay, so we got Mike Pompeo. Where's the difference? Are we going to relax on Iran or China? Or are we going to exercise a more muscular response to China and a more muscular response to Iran? Whatever the fuck that means. When so-called liberals tell me that, when Democrats tell me that, I do lose my mind a little bit, if you can't tell already. At agriculture, we have the lovely and talented Tom Vilsack, or as I'm probably going to call him from now on, Tom Balsack. He's an ex-Secretary of Agriculture under Obama. He's a fucking Monsanto guy. And so if you're wondering why we've had the last 20 years of what we've had agriculturally, he's a big part of that. He's less egregious than the current guy under Trump, a guy named Sonny Perdue, which isn't saying much because, the only reason Sonny Perdue isn't, he just hasn't had the access to be that evil, but he's voted against immigration and did all kinds of charming things when he was governor of Georgia. So White House Office of Public Engagement. Now this basically is a PR arm of the White House, reaching out to activists and stuff like that to, give them brochures and shit. They get this guy, Democrat from Louisiana, Congressman Cedric Richardson, who is a pariah among environmental groups. That's just all there is to it. He's accepted over $400,000 since 2007 when he, as a congressman, he ranks among the lowest in environmental rankings among all these, groups, worse than a lot of Republicans. He's in the bottom 40% as far as ratings go. He has never met a drilling bill he didn't like, and he's from Louisiana. You think you'd be a little more sensitive to that after Katrina, but no. At Energy, we've got a guy named Ernie Moniz, M-O-N-I-Z. He's a former Obama energy guy. And they're throwing him back in there. Greenpeace and 70 plus environmental groups have already begged Biden not to nominate this asshole. Fracking, drilling went up 88% under him when he was working with Obama. Arctic drilling got approved twice. Again, Rick Perry was bad. The guy in charge of the nukes and nuclear energy, Rick Perry was bad, but this guy, he's okay. Even the current secretary, Dan Brulette, has a less shitty track record than Ernie Moniz does. And he's at least pro-nukes, which if you know anything about nuclear energy is not a terrible thing. Office of Management and Budget. These last couple are my favorites because they're more popular. Hang on a second. I've been yakking for a second. Let me grab a sip of this. Boy, if you're in a program and can no longer drink, I feel sorry for you. So Office of Management and Budget, Neera Tanden, Okay, she's the CEO of the, quote, Center for American Progress, which is another corporate stooge fucking think tank. She was a key player in the Hillary Clinton 2008 campaign. Total fucking war hawk. If you don't remember her, she had a little bit of an uptick a couple years back when the WikiLeaks dump happened. And to my so-called, or not so-called, but to my corporate Democrat hack friends who think that, that was bullshit, those documents weren't forged. They were emails written by the perpetrators. How they got them? Who fucking cares? If I illegally videotape a murder because I didn't get the guy's consent, guess what? I still have a fucking murder on tape. Bingo. That's it. But her attitude is, and she had this in writing. I don't think she's going to be made princess of the Winter Carnival, but what the hell? She was really in favor of taking Libya's oil to help pay for our quote unquote engagements in other countries. In other words, let's take and steal another country's oil to pay for our shit to go steal and take other countries' shit. So she was a big fan of regime change war, and she wanted the Libya debacle to pay for that. And we did go into Libya, by the way, and she had Hillary Clinton's ear on that as well. And Hillary Clinton, if you recall, charged past Bob Gates, who was Secretary of Defense at the time, and elbowed her way into Obama's office with that whole attitude of wanting to look tough so she could run for president eventually. And we basically destroyed a country which, if you don't know, has slaves. So a black president brought back slavery. Good times. If you want a slave, you can go to Libya and get one for $200 to $400. I don't know what the shipping or the airfare issues are. You might have to pay for that yourself, but you can actually go get a live human being for $200 to $400 and do God knows what fuck all. That's just the beauty of a neoliberal failure that we've been the last 50 years. At transportation, which seems innocuous enough, it's transportation. Don't we like buses and rail? Yeah, we're cool with that. But Rahm Emanuel is getting tapped to be the Secretary of Transportation. He's an ex-congressman, Clinton aide. He was Obama's chief of staff, if you don't recall. He was an absolute fucking prick. In fact, comes from a family of pricks because his brother, Ari Emanuel, runs Endeavor Agency in Hollywood, or used to. And he's the guy that Ari Gold on Entourage is based on. Now, obviously, Entourage being a comedy, they wrote him a lot funnier than Ari Emanuel is in real life. So, he had a big hand in turning Obama's campaign on Medicare for All, which, if you recall, Obama ran on that and at minimum ran on the public option. But he was a big deal in running that into the ground and turning it into the ACA. He's taken more Wall Street cash when he was a congressman than any rep at the time, like in the top 10 of just Wall Street donations. When he was mayor of Chicago, and this is one of his biggest sins, and this is what kind of drove him out of the mayorship in Chicago, was he, if you recall the Laquan McDonald shooting a few years back, this was a kid that got shot 16 times by police who insisted that he charged at them with a knife. But when the video came out that Rahm Emanuel spent 10 months covering up, the video showed quite something opposite. It showed a kid running away from police, and let's not shoot him once because he's running away. Whatever he did, I forget now, because they shot him 16 times and they fucking killed him and just dropped him like a sack of laundry on the bridge that they were on together, which, if you haven't seen the video, it's, again, another snuff film made by those who protect and serve. And as Neil Brennan, the comedian, said, when you see the car and it says protect and serve in quotes, it's not supposed to be sarcastic. But in the end, and even in the aftermath of the scandal and the video getting released, Rahm Emanuel opposed a federal investigation into the Chicago Police Department for all kinds of shit like this. And, he completely refused to cultivate any kind of community oversight board for the police, et cetera, right? He promised to do this when the Laquan McDonald video finally came out because his family wouldn't let it go. Oh, and by the way, it's the city of Chicago paid his family $4 million, right, in a wrongful death deal. So again, how much money did this cost the police pensions? Not a nickel. I forgot what happened to those guys. I'm pretty sure they were fired and everything else. But cops aren't, dissuaded from this kind of shit because they think, it's not my money. If they do settle, not my money. And 99% of these people don't even get in front of a grand jury, much less go to jail. So that's kind of it, for right now. We've got psychos and war criminals and pro bank and pro oil and pro fracking and pro big insurance and pro pharma. And as Joe Biden said in the summer, I said it a second ago, he promised bankers that nothing was going to change. He promised fracking wouldn't end. He wouldn't answer any questions that I've seen on YouTube. Ton of video of him campaigning this summer. You didn't see it on MSNBC or CNN. You had to go to YouTube to see it. You had to see it on RT or Al Jazeera or The Intercept or whatever, of him at just a ton of places, workplaces where union people are meeting with him. And any question that was asked of him, he behaved like Donald Trump. Well, then go vote for Trump. You go vote for Trump. Can you do any push-ups? I mean, he's a fucking asshole, an asshole, psychotic liar. So we voted for him over the other asshole, psychotic liar. And the only difference between these two asshole, psychotic liars is one is going to send nicer tweets. And if you voted for Joe Biden thinking this makes you morally superior or ethically superior, because God forbid you, there we go. God forbid you vote for Donald Trump because he's a danger to this country, which is absolute horseshit compared to, say, Obama or Bush or Clinton or Bush or Reagan or Carter, even Jimmy Carter. We have Central and South America. He was the groundwork for Reagan to come in later. True story. Ford, Nixon, Johnson. I mean, Vietnam, Kennedy. I mean, it just gets it. We keep getting worse and worse and worse, and the lesser of two evils keeps getting us into this position where we keep getting shit. Right? Clinton was bad. At least she wanted to make Medicare down to age 50. What's Biden's big fix? Down to age 60. Excuse me. Nothing was going to change. You think oil and fracking are going to change? You think any of the federal lands that basically, when the Democrats are freaking out that Trump opened up, federal lands to drilling, that's not even 10% of all of our drilling. That's it. So you think that's going to probably change under Biden? Maybe. What about the rest of it? It's not going to change. Obama increased fracking and drilling by 88% in this country. Bragged about it last year at a commencement ceremony for college grads. And I upped fracking and drilling 88%. You're welcome. I mean, he bragged about it. So all that to say that here we are, like Ice Cube said on day one, Trump's not president. Now what? I'm not going to give this guy a fucking break. Trump didn't fuck up that bad in a system that was already fucked up. We had a fucked up system in the last crash in 2008. And if you haven't noticed, capitalism fails spectacularly every 4 to 7 years and needs a taxpayer bailout of some kind every 4 to 7 years. And every time this fucking A happens, and most of you don't have any memory whatsoever, even in your lifetime, you don't remember how many crashes we've had. You're always told, oh, it's a once in a lifetime thing. It'll never happen again. This crash, oh, it's because of the Medicare or it's the coronavirus pandemic. It'll never happen again. You want to fucking bet? It happened in 2008. And it's happened more frequently since we've had the banks deregulated, and the Glass-Steagall bill was repealed in 1999 by Bill Clinton. So he deregulated the banks. Within a year, we had our first crash. You remember the dot bomb fiasco, then 2008, and then now. So 3 massive crashes in the last 20 years. And I'm told that capitalism is whiz-bang awesome, and it works. It doesn't work. If it worked, it wouldn't need government money. At least with socialism, let's just call it what it is, it admits, that's the point, because I'm voting for people to fix my problems. When people say, oh, no, the government program. Well, war is a government program. In fact, the VA, for you people that are like freaking out about socialism, the VA buys their drugs the same exact way that Medicare buys their drugs. And they distribute it the same fucking way that Medicare distributes their drugs. So the VA is socialist. Also, too, for my little born-again friends that listen to this show, if you do listen to this show, I doubt it because, I'm not a Christian. But those of you that believe that Israel is God's chosen people, here's a little fun fact to know and tell. Israel, on our largesse, because we give them $4 billion a year in aid that they don't even fucking need because they're 60% of the drone sales in the world. They've got Oracle and everything else. They needed us back in the beginning, I guess. And they don't need us anymore, but we still give them $4 billion a year. Country of 6 million people. You know what they have? Wait for it. They have Medicare for all. Oh, and you know what they do there? They pay for abortions. So God's chosen people is paying for abortions. Now, I'm a pro-choice guy. However, I checked on the record last, my little Christian friends are not pro-choice for the most part. And they think it's a sin. It's a sin against God. Well, your chosen people are paying for fucking abortions on the regular. On our taxpayer dime. Have fun. Okay, guys, that's it. Actually, wow, I'm looking at my little magical stopwatch. I'm doing okay. I'm going to start wrapping this up. Again, support of the show is always appreciated. You can like or subscribe to the show on YouTube. Visit thebittertruth.info and everything's there. The Patreon link is there. You can, buy some great merch if you don't want to subscribe and, get a t-shirt or buy the novel or some stickers or whatever you want to do. And if you want to be a subscriber, that's awesome too. If you want to just hit a one-time donation, that comes in very, very handy. Like I said, we, support the show on just supporting the show. So that's it. We don't have ads and that kind of nonsense. And I know, when I do these by myself, sometimes I get a little cranky pants. And I understand that. But if you're not angry, then I have to ask, why are you not angry? And the big punchline in all of this is none of us are smart enough to outrun our psychology. That's just a simple fact that I've deigned to be true in the last 57 years of life. So when people tell me they're cool with the Democrats not using Medicare for all as a strategy right now because it would lose, which is bullshit because 90% of Democrats surveyed and 70% of Republicans surveyed want Medicare for all. Because when it comes to money, and I can get into a whole nother 45 minutes on what small businesses really think about Medicare for all compared to what they got to pay out of their pocket for their contribution for insurance that, fucks some of their employees on the regular too when they get sick. But all of that to say that when people say things like that, or they say, "Oh, I got my retirement covered, I'm fine. I don't need Social Security." Well, you've been paying into it. Medicare, by the way, you pay into it. This isn't welfare. If you look at your paycheck, or those of you that are self-employed like I am, what do you think the self-employment tax goes to? It goes to your Social Security. It goes to your Medicare. You've been paying for that. So why wouldn't you want to get it? Right? And then on the non-paid stuff like welfare or whatever, unemployment, by the way, that's another one. You've been paying into that for years and years and years and years. If you just lost your job, you should be getting unemployment, period. End of story. Even 1099 people should be getting unemployment because we should have a UBI in this country. So, we don't do anything the other countries do. We just do this, American exceptionalism bullshit. We're number one. We're not number one. Actually, we're number one in all the shitty things, including number one for self-esteem for stuff we don't do, which is maddeningly aggravating. And that's it. So I'm going to wrap it up. I already did the housekeeping at the end. Again, support the show is always appreciated. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.